Here we go, bringing you another installment of early preseason fantasy baseball draft prep from the Daily Jaylee. Today we're going to go a touch deeper into starting pitchers. Last time we talked, we just looked at aces, calling them 1B, 1A, 1B, 1C aces, got through 16 guys. And while I was looking at those, I thought, let's just go another layer deeper, see who's out there, see who's rising, and basically developed a list of what I'm going to call risers and journeymen. These are guys you can't get around. After those aces are gone, you're going to have to be looking here to fill out your staff. But before I get to those names, because we are focusing on winning auction drafts, which is a much under talked about aspect of fantasy baseball out in the community, I got a couple points today. So let's touch on those. First, we want to win all phases of the draft. And so I've been working on this drinking analogy. And the auction draft is a lot like your drinking habits as you get older. What I mean by this is that first-time auction drafters are like 21-year-olds every time. Every time in all the leagues I've been in, and we get a guy, he's like, oh, no, I'm serious. I like fantasy. I can't wait to get into this auction. Yeah, I'm ready. I'm so good. I'm so good. He's going to get killed in the first auction because of the excitement level and the fact that you can bid on every player and how accurate you have to be. No one's really ready for this. So we just let the rookies do what they have to do. But this is the analogy. First-time auction drafter gets in, does shots. Poof. Oh, yeah, poof, 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 4, 5, 6 shots, and just blacks out. That's the analogy of an auction player getting in and buying three $55 players and having no money and having to sit back and watch the entire rest of the auction. So as we mature, as we learn how to control ourselves and, as the analogy goes, handle our auction liquor, we learn that we want to win in all phases of the draft. We want to win the beginning of the draft. We want to be there in the middle, and we want to be there late night at the end of the draft to close out the bar, if you know what I'm saying. So I have a couple tips here to help you mature, help you, get into the draft, have a shot, loosen up, but then you might have to drink a water. You might have to have a water. You might have to chill out for a little bit, see how you're doing. Okay, let's have another one. Maybe you switch to beer in the middle. And then at the end of the draft, you got to be able to maintain. You can't be blacked out. You want to know what happens. You don't want to be making bad decisions and not be there. So I got some tips for you. Little segue. I just forgot about this. If you're on Fangraphs, here we go. Tip of probably the week or the month. On the bottom of the leaderboard, scroll all the way down. There's a way to do a name lookup, and you can generate custom report. Took me so long to find this. Don't let it take you this long. Generate custom report. You can put a name in, scroll, find the guy, select him. Another name, select him. It'll start to populate the little menu. When you go to generate custom report, now all you're looking at are those particular players. This is awesome in season. You want to compare your staff versus guys on the waiver you're considering. Drop your staff in there, drop the waiver in there, custom report. Now you're just looking at that group of players. And you can compare metrics, sort, and all the menus will just be for that group. And I'm going to be using that in the preseason. If I get a batch of outfielders or a batch of hitters, maybe I grab some top tier guys and I grab some lower ones. Just sort. It's the only way to get those guys into one report. So do that on your Fangraphs. Okay, back to the key tip here. One of the reasons that got me motivated into having to drop this is listening to fantasy experts talk about an auction and say, I don't go into it with any set plan. I don't have any plan at all. Like, are you? That's crazy. You must not be winning auctions. I know at the end of the season you talk about, oh, your players didn't do that well. Because I'm always going in with a plan. And here is the best plan. I call it the slush fund. So typical auction draft, or what we'll be targeting here, is your your Yahoo free auction draft head-to-head, $200. So before you get into the draft, decide, am I going to put, for example, $100 into my hitting? I'm going to put, let's call it $70 into my pitching, and then I'll keep a $30 slush fund. And then Go in and subdivide the $100. If it's 100 and hitting, maybe I need a $45 first baseman. I want to spend 20 and 20 on some middle infielders and use up that 100. Now you have 15. Now you got to buy some cheap outfielders and maybe a cheap third baseman. However you want to do it. Your pitching staff, $70. Maybe you got two $25 aces, some mid-tier, a closer, or not. But you keep this $30 slush fund. And the way I use this slush fund is kind of a measure of my aggression. So I have a plan in place. I know who I want. I know what players I'm going for at certain spots, guys I'm going to build around. And as I'm getting pushed around in the draft, I'm okay. I'm not going to get pushed off of my entire plan. The money comes out of the slush fund. So, oh man, I wanted Bryce. I knew he was going to be 55, but I got ran up to 65. That's okay. I still got Bryce. I'm not going to get off my game plan. I took 10 out of the slush fund. I got 15 in there. So you use this money that you set aside as aggression to deal with the variations in the draft. Obviously, if a player gets too crazy, you might have to get off of them. And the reason it's good to have a plan is because you can fall back. Okay, if I don't get this guy, who would I take instead? What $20 player can I fit in? I didn't get the $45. Who did I get for 20? And you drop back to your fallback option. But this is the key. If you get a guy for value, if you planned on paying 50 for Acuna and you got him for 45, throw 5 into the slush fund. So now you can start to be more aggressive. And what you'll see, let's say you were chasing value, you collected a lot of value. You got to know, oh man, this draft is going so well for me. I just got myself another $25 player. Or maybe somebody comes up and it's a piece that's going to fit just right. You decide, you know what, I'm going to add a full-blown $30 ace to this team, and you just empty your slush fund on it. So use the slush fund to deal with some of that variation. And that'll help you kind of deal with all phases of the draft. My next tip is for late night or the end of the auction draft. At the end of the draft, basically everybody's lost all their money, and we are doing $1 picks. Somebody may have big stack, but eventually he's just going to get his players, pay for them, and see you later. He doesn't want to be up all night. But the draft turns into a $1 snake at the end. This is my tip for that. Plan on having $2 players at the end. Don't drain yourself down to $1 players, because now if you nominate a player and somebody has $3, he can get you for 2. So having like $2 to $3 for every last player to round out your bench, your last 5 spots, your last 6, 7 picks. Make it a $2 player now when somebody nominates. Oh no, I wanted him, and you can click to 2. You can beat all the guys stuck to 1, and you kind of camp out. This is how you're going to win the end of the draft. And just for those those first comers, those first time auctioners, when you're in the draft, and let's say you just, oh man, the talent, you just all top tier players, your stack is gone. I call this pulling the parachute, where you just say, oh my God, I'm down to $20. You just have to stop drafting players. You just have to wait. You've gone full-blown stars and scrubs. Keep a little bit of stack. Keep it for the very end and get back in, because there's going to be talent late in the draft. And the reason we start this early and we make sure that we have creme de la creme players, premium, mid-tier, and then we start to push up upside, flyers, prospects who we're going for. We're ready still to win late. So regardless of where we buy our players, we're going to be getting quality. We're going to be putting quality into the lineup. All right, those are my tips for the auction draft. Let me know. Let's get into these pitchers. So we talked about the top 16 aces, and after further review, I see these kind of risers or the sexy picks, and there's a couple journeymen in there who we just can't get around. And I think you got to trust these guys. You got to be willing to jump over and grab one of these starters if you're going to have a decent staff, especially if you passed on all those aces. So these might be your second starters, maybe a third starter. Maybe you want a couple of these. Number 1, Masahiro Tanaka. He's a Yankee. A lot of people are frustrated. He's pitching with a partial tear in the elbow, so that could go at any time. Last season, he just said, you know what, I'm not going to protect the tear. He just started throwing as hard as he could. The velo ticked up a little bit. This is the thing with Tanaka. Bad home park, AL East, and occasionally he gets blow-ups. But you've got to realize when he goes well, there's ace stuff. And basically it comes because he's got this splitter, the split finger fastball that just drops off the table. It's unhittable. When it's going. And he can toss gems. He can toss absolute 7K, 10K 7 inning gems. He can get it right. So as much as there might be some distaste for Tanaka, he's a competitor. He's got legit stuff. He's got swing and miss stuff. So I think you got to reckon with him in that second tier. Next, I call him kind of a journeyman. Next, we have a riser, Luis Castillo. Oh man, Castillo, this could be the last year he comes at value. He burned a lot of people. A lot of people thought he was an ace. He was a burgeoning ace last season. We all overpaid, as did I. I had him all over the place. It was painful to roster him. I gave him a long leash, 6 weeks, 7, 8 weeks, 10 weeks. Finally, maybe I cut him. And he put it together at the very end of the season. The velocity came back, some mechanics. He's got swing and miss stuff. I was probably a year early. If the velo is 97 with the arsenal, it could all come together. And because he showed flashes at the end of last season, this is probably upside-wise this year's Block A Snell. So get a share of that. Get him while he's at value. This could be the last season. If I were to ding him a little bit, it's because he's a little short. And again, I like big, tall hitters. I like tall pitchers because they have more leverage and it's more intimidating on the mound. Castillo's a little smaller, and he was getting hit up in the beginning of the season, but you got to respect him here as a riser. I have a little thing. I have a little thing with Mets pitching, so I'm pushing this guy way up. Obviously I'm not looking at ADP. I'm not going to let it happen. Segue here as I'm listening to pods and I'm absorbing information. I just have to laugh every time someone says the price is too high for me at 83. I mean, you're referring to Snake. You're doing average draft position. At least say, like, I don't want to take him exactly in that round. I want to take two other guys, and then I want to take him in the 11th round. I mean, who are you taking instead on some of these guys? I mean, in the end, a draft goes about 6 rounds, 7 rounds, and then everybody's just firing an upside. So saying someone's too expensive at 100, I don't know. I don't know who you took the round before. Hopefully somebody much better. But here we go. It's Zach Wheeler. Zach Wheeler was flashing velocity. We have a former prospect, Tommy John. It fell apart, but if you look at the end of last season, he was putting gems together. If he wants to talk pitching, he can go talk to his boy Jake DeGrom or Noah Syndergaard and get some tips on what to do with his stuff. And while those guys want to say they're the best, maybe Wheeler thinks he's the best. So he's in there, he's competing, he's got stuff. Look at him to be a riser. And with the Mets adding some additional bats, some additional lineup protection, you may see a little bit more run support. Wheeler was going deep into games. I like him this season. Riser. Another riser here, Shane Bieber. Now, we got to check on the Biebs. I got to keep watching roster resource. I got to make sure that he has a starting rotation spot with the Cleveland Indians because that staff is deep right now. But if he does, this guy does not walk players. He does not walk batters. He stays in the zone. The metrics were good. The K upside is a little low, but I like the staff. I like the run support. He's just a youngster who could take a step forward this year. And because he has the control, if he adds some more swing and miss, and he talks to his boy Bauer or Klubat or Clevenger and learn some stuff, he could take a big step forward. I probably need to flip these two guys. We got Clevenger. Clevenger, again, an Indians pitcher. There's going to be no mystery here. This is somebody who I was just getting late. I mean, probably a $2 player. This is round out your staff material from last year, but he blew up. Everybody knows about it. He's going at a premium. You could get a piece. He's legit. He's legit 4-pitch mix. He's got the DeGrom flow. He's got the ink. He's got a little bit of a deceptive windup. He's a little herky jerky, but nasty. The stuff is nasty. Stick with it. It's not going to be any shock. He's not going cheap. I'm not surprising anyone with Clevenger at this spot. Riser. Another riser here. You're going to get him at value is Jack Flaherty of the St. Louis Cardinals. He's just hot. He's young. Came up in the minors. Hot. Swing and miss. Went deep into games. And I think you got to recognize that he's got good stuff. The leash is going to be a little looser this year. We're looking for the innings jump. He's just a prospect who came up and showed it right away. I like him as a riser. I'd like to get a piece of that. I was using him last season. I think he wore down a little bit, but given his youth and his stature, he's 6'4". I think he's got a 3 or 4 pitch mix. You got to stick with him as a riser. Next guy right here, Journeyman, Steven Strasburg. Oh, Strasburg. If you take Strasburg, make sure you take your Pepto with you because he's just hard to deal with. When he's healthy, he's got ace stuff, 4-pitch mix. He's kind of an example of how velo kills over time. He always had the high velo. He came into the league at 99, 100, but because of the way he struck the ground and how late his arm motion came through, it put a lot of stress on the elbow. So he is constantly injured. And he gets injured in weird ways. He might leave in a start. He might hang you up with 2 innings. He might leave midweek. His back might tighten up if you're in a weekly league just before game time. And when he goes down, it's probably a long stretch. But we're not going to quit him. We're not going to quit this journeyman because he's got such good stuff. And if the health is right and you don't hear anything out of spring training and you come out and you see that on the gun, he's clicking 97 with the burner, Strasburg's ace. Strasburg has ace upside. Don't be silly. Journeyman. Next, Jameson Taillon. Now, if you've been following Taillon, you know that he's a cancer survivor. He suffered a very unfortunate surgery that I won't go into more detail on. But we've liked his control in the minors. He's shown a little step forward in the last season. The thing I don't like is how the Pirates manage their staff, but everyone's on Taillon. Sleeper in the bust pod, no mystery here. Taillon is going to be that kind of number 3 starter that people are chasing with upside. I don't think you're getting him for value, but he's a riser, and he's young enough, he's big enough to maybe take a step forward. Miles Mikolas. Miles Mikolas is kind of a late onto the scene because he had to go to the International League to come over with his stuff, but he's sitting 95 with the fastball. The chase rate is great. He's lacking some swing and miss. He's lacking a little bit of upside from last season, but that's where we're looking for him to make a little step in progress, and he could be kind of a number 2 starter for you, Miles Mikolas. So I trust him. The secret's going to be out. I mean, got him for free last season. Nobody even knew his name. He wasn't in the league. He came across as like a 29-year-old. So he was free. Now he's not. Now he's way up draft boards. You're going to have to sort through, how much you want to pay for Mikolas. And again, these guys aren't in perfect order for me, but this cluster of 10 guys that I'm rounding out just have to be taken into consideration and push them up. Push them up on your list. You don't want to be sleeping on any of those 10 guys. Next, James Paxton. Paxton has plus velocity, but he has a plus injury risk. He cannot stay healthy. When he goes, it's great, but it's always limited. So if you're going to take a guy like Paxton, you probably need to take a couple extra pitchers to back him up, because you can't just say, all right, Paxton, I have an ace, and now I'm going to run out, go back to hitting. No, because he might only give you 100 innings. But just in case he doesn't keep it all together and stay healthy for the first time, which guys can suddenly do, and then you have a breakout right then and there, you got to keep in mind James Paxton. So I pushed up all these guys. Let me just give you the review. Tanaka, Castillo, Wheeler, Bieber, Clevenger, Flaherty, Strasburg, Taillon, Mikolas, and Paxton. These are guys you got to take serious as maybe entering the 1C, maybe having ace upside next season. And what happened here is there's some journeymen that are probably going in ADP. I don't know because I'm not looking at it because I don't want to be polluted like everybody else. It's going, oh, how'd he go in NFBC? And, oh, that's too expensive for me. Because every draft is going to be different. You might be in a whole new draft. What if they don't go there? Anyways, these are the journeymen you're probably seeing in that spot. We're just going to touch on them quickly and touch on why I maybe don't want to touch them. We got Barrios of the Minnesota Twins. Young, flashes stuff, took a step forward last year, but not the full step. We just haven't seen the ace. He gets a little walky. He loses control sometimes. He's got stuff, but we like him. I like him because he's young. So the older guys probably going to maintain. The younger guys, maybe they get better. That's where I want to invest. Barrios. Charlie Morton. Charlie Morton finds Velo as an old man with the Astros, getting the most out of their staff. Another team that has very good pitching management, the Tampa Bay Rays, say, we'll pay Charlie Morton. Send him over here. So injury risk is the real problem with him. He can't stay healthy. He can't stay right. The elbow, the forearm, the back, everything. But he could give you some good innings. Tampa Bay could get the most out of him. J.A. Happ. I don't know. Happ is just a journeyman. He's been all around the league. I believe he started in Philly. He was a Rookie of the Year nominee, and then he fell off. And then he went to Pittsburgh, and he added the cutter, but he wasn't that good. And then he went to Toronto, and Toronto had him striking guys out. So he's getting older, but he's learning how to pitch. He's a solid pitcher. You've got to put him in somewhere. He might give you a little more this season. Maybe he keeps figuring it out. He keeps adding control. That's J.A. Happ. Robbie Ray. Robbie Ray was a guy a lot of people made mistakes on last year, but he's got strikeouts. I believe he's still in Arizona with the Humidor. He really fell off last year, so if you want to get him for value, he's there. David Price. David Price is getting up into his mid-30s. The last couple seasons, he's like, I got a tear, but I'm going to play through it. And then he pitched through a tear into the playoffs. He was closing. I mean, this guy's just a warrior, just an iron horse. But I think his best days are behind him. He's going to get some wins in Boston. He's heady. He gets calls. He has control. Skills haven't completely fallen off, so you got to respect David Price in there. If you like 35-year-old pitchers, he's in there. Journeyman. Chris Archer. Chris Archer's going to bring you Ks, and he's not going to give you ERA. People are scared of it, but he's got his place. He's kind of like a sometimes get blown up, sometimes strike out a lot of guys. He's never really reached his full potential. Now he's in Pittsburgh. Kind of a two-pitch mix problem with the fastball slider. We see that once he goes to the third time through the rotation, he gets rocked. He's going to come for cheap. If you just need Ks, if you just need a number 4, if you can mix him in if he falls too far, you can try some Archer, kind of a journeyman. Folty, I'm just going to call him Folty, of the Atlanta Braves. Folty's high velo, super hard stuff. People wanted to see it from him 2 years ago. He burned him. Then they laid off, and then he put it together. And then they kind of didn't believe, like, no, this is Folty. He can't keep this going. But he did, and he kind of took the step forward. He harnessed some of that velo, that super hard, that 96, 97, put it together, and, made a step. So I think you can go back to Folty. Maybe he makes one more step. This is the Atlanta Braves. So they had Maddox, Schultz, all sorts of pitchers. This is legendary pitcher stuff. They know their pitchers. And maybe Folty starts to fall into that mode. He's a riser that I'd like to get another little piece of because when it was good, it was real good. These next two guys, I don't know. I don't like them. I don't want to trust them, but the numbers are telling me they're okay. And that's Andrew Heaney and Nick Pivetta. Heaney's over at the Angels. They can't manage staff, constantly injured. So is he. I didn't love him. I was streaming him last season, but the numbers are there that he's becoming better. He could give you something this year. Nick Pivetta, the fastball got good. He's with the Phillies. He's going to be okay this season. It just push him up. I'm going to have to dig a little deeper to see if I really trust these guys, but I just want to talk about them right now. And then this next one, the Dark Knight. Matt Harvey, the Dark Knight. The Dark Knight might rise. The Dark Knight was one of my favorite players. Probably still is. But if you've been following his health, it's been terrible. Tommy John, and then thoracic outlet, which nobody comes back from. And then he came back from that, and they said he had like a trap muscle didn't work, and then he just wanted to not show up from games. He's a playboy. He's a diva. The Mets just shipped him out. They shipped him out to, I believe, Cincinnati, and then he's now on the Angels. But the Dark Knight in his heyday when he was young, just nasty, nasty stuff. So at the very end of last season, we started to see the velo. We started to see the slider work. What was 4-pitch mix is kind of 2, maybe 3. But for how cheap he's going, he's broken so many hearts. And I just want to stay truther on Matt Harvey. He's getting slandered in the fantasy community. Guys are like, oh, no way, no way. They'd rather talk about like Kyle Gibson or, just some other ridiculous arms. Oh, Grinky and stuff like that. But, I'm going to give the Dark Knight, I'm just going to stay there until he retires. Until the velo falls below 94, we're going to give him another chance. 3 more guys before we wrap this up. John Gray, again, another Colorado starter. He just fell apart last year. He's got the hard velo. He's got the red fiery locks. He seems to get weird injuries, like he hurt a toe or he hurt some other things. Not his arm, but like lower body. So the park is going to kill him. Colorado, where the ball flies out, even though they have a humidor. But, it's John G. And I like to keep getting pieces. I'm going to try it again. And here's the 2 more journeymen. This is where your conservative fantasy baseball expert will go. I'm sure these guys are average draft position above most of the people I just mentioned. And that's Greinke and Hamels. These are just old men that just know how to pitch. Heady. They've always had the stuff. The stuff isn't going to emerge and have them launch into 1A territory because I don't think they have the hard stuff to do it. But they're journeymen. They're journeyman players that you got to be aware of. You got to have them ranked somewhere. I don't want it, especially not Hamels. I have a better chance of getting Greinke if he comes borderline free. But we'll see. So those are the names there. I'll just touch on that next group. Barrios, Morton, Happ, Ray, Price, Archer, Folty, Heaney, Pavetta, Harvey, Gray, Greinke, and Hamels. And that's going to kind of round out the next group of pitchers. And the next transition I'm going to be making here is back into the hitting. We want to get back into those mid-tier hitters, and we want to look for some upside. We want to look for some 5 category. And so stay tuned. Hit me with a like. Hit me with a comment. Where are you at in your prep? Let me know if you got any questions. Holler at your boy.